Hello, gentle viewers. There's my Twitter, but this is what we're talking about today. I don't know if you know. Oh, there's my stream. My stream. Sorry, I'm just checking it out. There's a second thing here. Oh my. So today we're gonna talk about the Whisper Network, and I wanted to do a live just because it's a kind of a long article. I don't know if you can't, maybe you can or can't see this. No, it's covered up, but this is like, it's long. So I'm just gonna start reading. If you want to participate, there's the chat. Otherwise, it's going to be me just doing it live to see how much attention it gets. All right, so we're covering Whisper Network. There's a part two that was published by Bleeding Fool. Goes over a lot of details about people that are supposedly involved, and we'll start reading about that now. So here they go. Since exposing the Whisper Network, tips and testimonials have flooded into Bleeding Fool inbox from all corners of the internet. It feels like a tectonic shift is happening, and we're nowhere near done decontaminating the comics industry. Perhaps the series will be enough disinfecting light to foil these wicked plans. We'll see. Yeah. The thing about that is kind of dead. I don't know. Um, Mainstream comics is kind of dead right now, dying. I mean, Diamond's trying to make a comeback in the wake of coming back from the beer bug, but no one's really looking into it. So it's kind of weird. It is what it is. We are. I don't feel that it's something that's gonna be recoverable from. That that things are gonna crash and burn. It's gonna be the Whisper Network's fault. You know, besides the beer bug, of course. For them, basically exclusively wanting only specific people on to be working in the industry at all, and making all these attempts to shut them down to the point where they all just go somewhere else. It's like, okay. Anyways, let's continue reading. For this installment, I'm going to first present an untold history lesson of a massive crime that initially reported and swiftly followed by media cover up, and I think a lot of people completely missed. Sometimes it's what the media doesn't report that makes a difference. Then we'll go back inside the secret network of comics Facebook group where I demonstrate why I think its popular DC Comics writer is the next target of the Whisper Network. And while we're in there, let's expose who the head honchos of the group are, shall we? Is this thing even real is the most important question. And from these tweets here, it basically says, "Oh, sure, the Whisper Network exists, but 99% of the time we're not even talking about guys." A few days after Part 1 dropped, writer Amy Chu casually confirmed the existence of the Whisper Network, which she dubbed Arrogant Female Whisper Network on Twitter. Doesn't that sound like a great name for a branded merchandise? Merchandising? No. Huh. By the way, I am a member of the Arrogant Female Whisper Network, which is neither run by Gail nor Alex, as he claims, and thanks for the new name, we are talking about enamel pins and stickers. And this is precisely why we have closed group for women, non-binary, trans pros. And here it talks about how Whisper Network exists. Thing. We're exposing the arrogant female Whisper Network run by Gail Simone and Alex DeCampi. Pontificators. Mm-hmm. Da 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 da. So that's one of the tweets that she quote tweeted just to talk about the situation, and then she replies to it some more. This is why the bathroom line is so long at Comic Con, where all go together to plot the destruction of the comics industry. You make a joke, but it's literally what you're doing. More so here. Also, rest assured, 9% of the time we're not talking about guys. More like how tired we are and lots of cat pics. Hashtag women in comics. In fact, this is damning evidence of a much larger conspiracy behind us to turn everything we do and make it about the guys. So admitting that this is that their whole thing is a conspiracy to take care of things. And the response from Bleeding Fool, is she trying to convince her followers that this secret group of women, non-binary, and transgender pros that I've uncovered only exist to talk about how tired we are and share cat pictures 99% of the time? Well, as Alex DeCampi has replied to those men who claim to be innocent of sexual assault, Cute, but we don't believe you. And here's next thing we're going to go into is the recap. This is the first article already dropped, and they talked about the specific the breakdown of the group. They posted a bunch of stuff from a Facebook group. Sorry, there, a Facebook group that exists specifically to help the comic book women private group communicate with each other, talk about the Whisper Network, talk about what they're going to do to get rid of people from comics, from DC, from Marvel, from wherever, people that are problematic for them or that don't immediately bend the knee when they ask them to. So, I'm going to need some water because this is going to be a lot of chatting. But, it is what it is. So, in part one, we learned that 440 plus women who are either in the comic book industry or connected to it have a secret, invite only Facebook group that outsiders can only find and gain access to if they know where to look, who to ask, and can get approved by the top moderators. Martin, whose top moderators are later. Members of this club include Zoe Quinn, Gail Simone, Mags Visaggio, Heather Antos, Tamara Bonvillain. Wow, these names. And many others that are regularly involved, implicated or at least tertiary to the scandals that I could fit in 100 articles. And while the majority of the group's members have a very mundane engagement or inactive accounts, a handful of them are very active. Oh my. Okay, so someone did a video. Let's see if it's going to tell me who. Oh, it went way over there, so never mind. So, that's Dan Fan. After reading through part 1, YouTuber Dan Fan humorously dubbed Axe DeCampi the Regina George of the group, while also noticing how Rich Johnson of the Comic Center website Bleeding Cool frequently managed his site as a more personal PR department for DeCampi, along with a writer named Stephanie Cook acting as a sort of apprentice to Alex. I think it's time we take a look at Ms. Cook. Stephanie is a Toronto-based comic book writer and editor and also a podcaster and critic. She founded various creator-focused websites like Creator Resource, Rogues Portal, and Creator Advisor, where she says she endeavors to give back to the comics community that she loves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She says she does it because it can be extremely toxic and discouraging at times, but I really believe in the potential of what the comics industry can become. I want to help steer that ship towards progress, inclusivity, transparency, and just generally be better. She also works with the comic book industry community as much as possible to help foster safer and more inclusive spaces for all. Got that? Now that we're all caught up, let me show you where I'm going with this. Turns out she's a bad girl. Let's take a look. Felony charges and the disappearing news coverage. If Hugo Award-winning nominated and Eisner-winning comics writer publicly accused someone else in the comics industry of a felony crime, would you expect the comics media to report it? The media sure made a big deal of the late great Stanley accused when the great late Stanley accused his assistant of theft. But when New York Times bestseller and legendary comic book pro Bill Willingham, the man responsible for the award-winning DC Vertigo comic book series Fables, I love Fables by the way, recently accused his assistant of embezzlement, the story got memory hold. Yep. Now Fables uh, isn't terribly mainstream. I mean, it's well known in the comics book circles, but Telltale did make a game, and they're trying to make a second called shoot. What is the name of that bloody thing? Telltale. Wolf Among Us. It was a Wolf Among Us. It was a point-and-click adventure game with some what was it? That thing. QuickTime moments. QuickTime. QuickTime functionality, like doing different activities at a certain timing in order to get through the various actions of the game. But yeah, it was a very interesting game. I watched a couple different people play it. And that's kind of the most mainstream that whole thing has gotten. Hold on. It's really dry in my apartment. But yeah, so that's a kind of a helper if you don't know anything about that. Okay. And to go on, his assistant had been very eager to break into the business years earlier, and everything was presumably going well until he began to notice that a lot of his money had gone missing. 3 years into her employment, Birmingham became convinced that his assistant had betrayed him and that she had embezzled in excess of $10,000 from his accounts, and then filed charges with the local authorities, and a criminal case was launched. The female assistant in question just happened to be one of the Whisper Network's rising stars, none other than Stephanie Cook, who was working on Tartarus for Image Comics. Oh boy. In fact, Bill Willingham made the incident very public, releasing the news to the comic industry press with the following statement. It needs to be reported that, during the 3 years she worked for me, Stephanie Cook embezzled and outright stole from me a total in excess of $10,000. Unfortunately, I can't give you anything approaching an exact figure yet, as we're still uncovering instances of theft. That's from September 19th, 2015. Here's another excerpt from the published statement. Recently, it's come to my attention that my former personal assistant, Stephanie Cook of Toronto, Ontario, has been seeking new work in the comic book field as a personal assistant. Specifically, I reference this. On September 1st, she tweeted, "Hey comic pros, need an assistant to help you get stuff done? Check out what I can do for you." That tweet links to her blog site and her pitch, Comic Book Pros. I know how badly you can be in need of help in your lives. When you're focusing on putting art and writings out there in the world, it can be hard to remember to do other things. That's where I come in. It goes on from there, mentioning her past experiences and examples of the various services she offers. It needs to be reported that during the 3 years she worked for me, Stephanie Cook embezzled and outright stole from me to a total in excess of $10,000. Unfortunately, I can't give anything approaching an exact figure yet, and we're still uncovering instances of theft. So that was the first part of it. Bill talks about police charges he's pressing, gives a case number for the proceedings, and says that the reason he is taking this public is to prevent Cook from working in a similar fashion elsewhere. He then interviews himself in a Q&A article where he answers himself with a list of allegations of fraud behavior against Cook, including withdrawing too much salary on his cards and using additional amounts of his money to fund her own projects, to buy social media followers. Buy social media followers? No. And fly to Boston for a show, claiming someone else was paying. And he states that if she does come back to the U.S. from Canada, she may be arrested. Interesting. Interesting. So this, I never heard of this either. This never got on my radar at all. So that is very strange. Jeebs. Which one's so dry in here today? Alright, continuing on, everybody. According to the folks I spoke with, Cook was well known by Birmingham's friends and family, and everyone knew this had happened. They also told me that this was considered an open secret in the comic business. For some reason, those I spoke with have been privately discussing Cook's embezzlement since 2015, but none dared bring it up publicly. For them, Cook's name had strangely become a sort of Voldemort, who cannot be named. Perhaps because of her reputation and media connections, they worried that some kind of backlash to their careers if they spoke out, even if everything they were saying was completely true. Does this remind anyone of anything? Any kind of like weird sort of network of people that are working to keep people in the business and keep other people out? Anyways, I digress. To hammer the point home even further, another source for this alleged crime spoke up. One of the most respected women in comics appears to have had some knowledge of the theft case. Mimi Cruz, co-owner of renowned Utah-based Night Flight Comics, gave credence to Bill Williams' 2015 public statements backing up his claims. The film was posted on her official blog, and she also linked to it from her Twitter account. If he, Bill Willingham, has reported this to the police and has a case number, it is not a joke. Stephanie Cook should already be trying to make restitution. Public sympathy will not keep you out of jail. I applaud Willingham for making this situation public and in turn hopefully preventing others from being victimized in the same way. Here's the actual blog post, it looks like. She's just reporting This is from Bleeding Cool, and it does talk a lot about it. Basically, from here on down is what's read above. I'm not going to read all of that because we got a lot to read anyways. There's no reason to get into that. So, anyways, the article continues. I agree with Mimi Cruz, and I believe that Dr. William has no motivation to lie. Local police were apparently provided with enough evidence to open a case and begin their investigation. While verifying my story, our editor reached out to Bill Willingham himself and confirmed that the criminal case filed in Dodge County, Minnesota against Cook is indeed still active, and Willingham also offered the following comments this week. Emphasis added. I don't know if she ever retained counsel. She threatened to, and at the time I hoped she would try to sue, since evidence against her was overwhelming. No new evidence has come to light unless you count my continuing to go through more old bank records to see how wide-ranging her thieving went. Forensic accounting may be the most tedious of all jobs, and I pretty much had to do it all on my own. So then, not only has Miss Cook gotten away with, unless she does something incredibly stupid before the statute of limitation expires, she's cost me hundreds of hours of dull labor piecing together the extent of her crimes. Out of sheer embarrassment, I almost stayed quiet about what she did, as far as telling the comic community about her, because I really did make it ridiculously easy for her in almost any way imaginable. It was when she started advertising her services around as a potential personal assistant to other prominent pros that I thought had some sort of responsibility to speak up. I did then and again now. People in our business have been duly warned, and I hope that I can go back to banishing Stephanie Cook from my thoughts. Yeah, he's just not. He's just not. He doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. It's like he's almost embarrassed, like epically so. I cannot. Hold on. I didn't realize it was so dry when the AC is off in here. It's just brutal. Anyways, so Comics Media either ignored or outright censored the story. Well, in fact, while CBR, Newsarama, Comics Alliance, and The Beat were all completely silent on the matter, the only high-profile comic web news website that apparently covered the story was none other than Bleeding Cool. As you can see in the screenshot from Nightflight Comics I shared above, Mimi Cruz directly linked to the following Bleeding Cool article on her official blog on September 22nd, 2015. Could Bleeding Cool be the only media outlet that gave any attention or credibility to the story? On September 21st, 2015, the story ranked as 11th most popular news item on Bleeding Cool, right behind three stories attacking artist Frank Cho. Well, Cho is he's just a guy. He does a lot of adult artwork, and that's people don't like it for some reason. But if you try to link to it, so this is all aggregated and built from and just stamped like a snapshot of the current traffic, and whether those links still exist underneath all that, they apparently don't, because something happens when you take link to that particular story link, takes you to a blank page. Oops, can't be found. Every other link, yeah, it's literally a snapshot in time, and if things change to the URL, there's nothing that page can do about it because they're not going to update that page. Hold on. Why would the only deleted article in that list be the one where Stephanie Cook was credibly accused of embezzlement by Fable's creator Bill Willingham? Why has it been scrubbed from the site after being such a hot news story? After all, if it bleeds, it leads, is the general perception of what gets reported at Bleeding. Cool. And head writer Rich Johnson is considered by many to be a media shark. Once he sees red, he attacks anything that moves, ripping apart any pro in his path. But I must admit that he does seem to have a strange penchant for showing mercy whenever Whispered Never comrades are concerned. Shepard readers may have noticed that Alex DeCampi's name appears on the same page as the Cook story, where DeCampi, and I can't make this stuff up, is accusing a bunch of comic industry pros of sexual misconduct without evidence. Yep, yep. And it goes into detail about that section of that article. I've known Alex DeCampi for over 15 years. Not only is she a very fine writer and innovator, her passion for the medium and creativity is evident in the way she cares about it all. She has a very annoying tendency to be right about most things, but as with Cassandra, it doesn't turn out very well for her. If you are smart, you employ her. Even if you're even smarter, you listen to what she says. And then you read her comics and feel clever, amused, moved, dirty, turned on, whatever she wants to make you feel that particular morning. Whether it's her own characters or of trademarks or toys, there are a few better writers in comics right now. All these reasons are all these are reasons to hire her, not to blacklist her. But she and I know exactly what is more likely to happen. You can read her Uncanny Valley Girl columns for Bleeding Cool, where she's laid out the possibilities for digital comic books, and some smart people are finally waking up to it right here. But you should really read her Tumblr as well, and then hire her. What is this? That's how Rich Johnston ended the article. That campy article about her making all these sexual misconduct claims. Oh, she's smart, very smart. You must employ her. Simp, 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 simp. So getting back to Stephanie Cook here now, it looks like. Ah. In fairness to Stephanie Cook, sorry guys, she did proclaim her innocence on Twitter, and so also claimed she was getting a lawyer. And then when the alleged embezzlement in Minnesota came to light, but afterwards she swiftly fled the United States and returned to Canada. Was that to avoid facing charges or answering to the legal system through her lawyer as she claimed to have hired, or was she just feeling homesick? According to my sources, she never hired anyone, and she deleted any and all of her tweets where she claimed she was hiring one. Huh. Where's that bracket coming from? Yeah, where is that bracket? I'm lost where that bracket came from. Hmm. It was going here, obviously. As of today, according to all parties that I spoke with, this remains an open embezzlement case, and she has still not hired an attorney. And in Minnesota, embezzlement of this magnitude is punishable by up to 10 years in prison or fines up to $20,000, which is like double what she took. But innocent until proven guilty, guys. Come on, come on. That's totally how things work, especially on Twitter. Oh my. According to Bill Williams' 2015 statement from his original open letter, which Bleeding Cool wiped from their site, she could still be charged with embezzlement should she return to the USA. I don't have the dollar amount of the alleged embezzlement. William alluded to be in excess of $10,000. If Cook were to be convicted of felony for less than $10,000, she could still land in prison for up to 5 years in the state of Minnesota. That might motivate someone to lay low, not mention the incident anymore, and just wait out the statute of limitations. If only there was someone who owned a small law firm in central Minnesota could law explain this hypothetical situation to us. And now, for something completely different, on the subject of transparency, it says, Comics Beat, the workplace of Cook's fellow Whisper Network comrade Heidi MacDonald, published an interview with Cook back in 2018 where she wanted everyone to know she was a big fan of transparency. There are a lot of problems with the comic industry, as anyone who's been in it can tell you. For a while can tell you. I think some of these problems could be solved with transparency. Alright. I found it interesting that Cook not only seems to want to talk about transparency, but as it applies to the men in the comics industry, but not herself or her comrades. Strange, there was no mention of these embezzlement charges Dr. William lobbied against Cook in the article. For that matter, there was no mention of it anywhere in the comics website, save for one lone commenter with a good memory and an inquisitive mind who at least asked about it in the comments section of the transparency interview. All of 2 comments, and they closed them after. They closed them right away. Oh no, this is like a month apart, but comments are closed. That might just be due to age of the article too. All right, so he even jokes about it. Comments certainly are closed on that subject. 9 months earlier, Heidi herself had posted news that Comics Professional Retail Organization, was investigating the misappropriation of organizational funds by co-founder Gary Dills. So embezzlement stories were fair game then. What changed? Other comic book websites also carry the Dill story, but when I looked for Stephanie Cook's story, it's just not there. Certainly not at comicsbeat.com or anywhere else apparently. Maybe inside the Whisper Network, beneficial friends can help make pesky problems disappear? It's entirely possible. I mean, looking at this and looking at the how mysteriously things have just disappeared from the site, there's no reason to delete them from the site because apparently everything from that time period is still up, like he said. It's very strange. And shows him doing a search and not finding Willingham or Cook in a comicsbeat.com article. And he goes on to say, as far as I can tell, the only time Cook ever responded to these accusations was on Twitter, which she later deleted. Here are two screen caps of tweets where it looks like Cook posted a response to Williams' accusations in September 2015. The fact that he accused me in public of such incredibly shitty things on my effing birthday is unbelievable. Hello, Cookie. Sorry to ruin your birthday. He never provided me with a chance to defend myself and automatically decided that I was guilty. That's what happens when you file court cases with the thing. You know, that's just how it goes. Anyways, according to these tweets, public accusations are crappy, and not letting people defend themselves first before going public is also bad. In contrast, here are a few more of Stephanie's undeleted tweets regarding instructions on how to handle money, with some jabs at men for good measure. Weird how the first two almost on the anniversary of Williams charging her with embezzlement. Yeah, just barely passed that. Alright, be realistic about this industry to other creators because finding a home for your projects is hard, and finding work consistently enough to pay the bills is even harder. That's how work works. That's how life works. It should come to no surprise to ask anyone that all the people telling me that I'm wrong about making money in comics are men. That's because the women are just busy protecting you and they don't freaking care what you have to say about it because they're gonna cover your ass anyways. It's the people that aren't part of the Whisper Network that are going, "Aw, muffin." You know, stop giving your money to shitty people when there are plenty of others who will gladly take your support. Funny you should say that, Stephanie Cook, accused embezzler of tens of thousands of dollars. All right, the irony is off the charts for sure. But as we're gonna say and we're gonna see here, thanks to this access to this Facebook group, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. Whisper Network members have been laughing at reports that came out in recent weeks about their group, making light of what was reported or threatening illegal reprisals, but this is actually far from funny. Stephanie Cook is writing books for HMH kids. She organizes comic events. She's considered to be a trusted member of the media, which means she has the privilege of reporting and handling sensitive information. She is supposed to be helping hook up creators with paying gigs, and yet she has never answered for criminal charges that have leveled at her by her previous employer, an award-winning, highly respected creator in the comic industry. How many in the Whisper Network had ever even heard or even knew about the alleged embezzlement beforehand or have kept quiet? CBR has published literally hundreds of Bill Willingham related stories, but we're mum on this one. How many people knew about the subsequent media cover-ups or perhaps even helped facilitate them? How many people in the industry have been victimized due to silence, something that Bill Willingham, Mimi Cruz, and others attempted to protect their peers from? No, I am sorry, Amy Chu, but this is not sharing cat pictures. This is not a joke. This is dead serious, and a lot of folks are having to answer for. A lot of folks have things to answer for. Meanwhile, let's take a detour from memory lane and now look at some more recent history, and even peek into the future a little bit. Oh my, let's check it out. I'm not gonna get something for this, am I? It's literally a list. Odds for next week's phony celebrity comics gig announcement. Kevin Smith is mainstream Anyways, if anything is mainstream, like Kirkman. They don't even bother putting Kirkman's first name there. All these people. I guess they don't like Alan Moore. Alright. I need another. I'm going through this bottle already. This is bad. Sorry about that, guys. This is a long one. It's gonna be a long one. I don't know, if I'll keep it up past a week. Anyways, Whisper Network's next likely target. There's a tactic known as playing the long game, where the opposition builds their attacks in intensity slowly over time, sort of a death by a thousand cuts approach before the final blow, and then the real Twitter trial begins. On the social platforms, I've observed this pattern in the same handful of folks who frequently talk about taking down the quote-unquote shitty people, the worst of the worst, and only the folks who they allege attack marginalized groups participate in hate groups. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that whole thing with Jay Lee, like, not only is he a minority, he's also they also try to claim that Comicsgate is a hate group, which is a legal designation that doesn't exist, that they're not labeled with. I mean, you want to engage in hyperbole, feel free, but that's all it is hyperbole. It's so weird. You know, you know who they say they hate? Those right wingers, the Gators, Trumpsters, ad infinitum. However, I am convinced that this group, or several members of it, are targeting anyone with power, regardless of their politics or their affiliations. Potentially, a target might be anyone they're jealous of, or anyone who has a job they feel entitled to. I also noticed that nearly all the targets seem to be men. Here's the first cut. Heather Antos, formerly of Marvel Comics, recently doled out a kick to the shins to Scott Snyder of DC Comics. Happened on August 20th, 2018. Does that date sound familiar? Several months after she left Marvel Comics, and certainly not fired from Marvel for anything that amounted to bullying, harassment, rumor spreading, and trying to damage the careers of her co-workers, as has been speculated. She left the company voluntarily to become the editor-in-chief of esports betting website Unicron in March 9th of 2018. And reliably as ever, Richardson gave her a wonderful send-off on Bleeding Cool. And here's a tweet. Sorry. Sorry. All right. And here's a thing. Comics are for everyone. There's no excuse for harassment. There's no place for homophobia, transphobia, racism, or misogyny in the comics industry, comics criticism, or comics fandom. Don't be a dick. I was off radar with this being the kids last week before school starts. I missed this yesterday, but of course this. And then Heather Hantos comes back and says, I'm disappointed. I expected more from you, Scott. I expected more from you. Emma Antos makes what seems like a subtle jab that implies you're not condemning Comicsgate quick enough for my taste, Scott, so that must mean you're tacitly supporting them. Am I reading that wrong? Some source read is simply Antos being Antos, taking a cheap shot whenever she sees an opening and was therefore not really nothing out of the ordinary. But it really was a random dig, or is this the beginning of something bigger? Comicsgate has been labeled a hate movement by certain self-proclaimed social justice warriors and far-left activists on Twitter, Heather Antos included. However, Comicsgate supporters and the industry pros who either sympathetic or identify with the movement have always denied these allegations, claiming they are inclusive and that they treat everyone equally, love comic books, judge work by its merit, and simply don't like a lot of what they see in the current direction of the industry. And yet, for some reason, Snyder was compelled to repeatedly denounce the movement on his social media. And then we get to October? The Whisper Network was tearing things up throughout 2017, making crazy comments and trashing pros publicly and privately. But things began to shift in late 2017 after Aubrey Sitterson's G.I. Joe comic was canceled by IDKIYK for low sales. At least that's what was reported, but his critical statement about 9/11 mourners probably didn't sit well with G.I. Joe customers, especially since he crossly decided to his provocative especially since he crassly decided his provocative comments on the anniversary, December 11th. Crassly decided his? Maybe he says maybe means to post it. He posted it online or something. This did little to quiet the extreme fringe left, but it planted a seed. Normal comic fans in the middle, on the right, and even many on the left were growing sick of this sense of hatred towards readers and the heavy-handed politics that writers were irregularly inserting. They just want to be entertained, not scolded. Then October rolled around. October 12th, 2018, Marvel writer Chuck Wendig was fired, in his own words, because of the negativity and vulgarity that my tweets bring. It has it was too much politics, too much vulgarity, and not too much negativity on my part. Quote, end quote. Then on October 25th, 2018, comic book professional Mark Waid of Kingdom Come fame started GoFundMe to pay for a lawsuit. He was accused of tortious interference and defamation by indie comic creator Richard C. Meyer, who started a GoFundMe of his own. At the time, Meyer's campaign has raised 145,000, while Wade's has only raised 81,000. With all his sturm and drang, I surprisingly found virtually nothing happening in the Whisper Network after October 2018. For the rest of the year and for nearly all of 2019, the Twitterati seemed to be on their best behavior. They even stopped much of the trash talking and presumably any colluding behind the scenes, from what I could tell. I could find no threats, no bullying, and the rumor spreading had really died down. It remained relatively quiet until 2020. Attacks resume on Snyder. Okay, here we go. One thing I've come to believe about the Whisper Network, they never forgive and they never forget. Even the tiniest cut will leave a trail of blood for them. On January 14th, 2020, it was none other than Stephanie Cook who took a next swipe at Snyder. It is probably too soft to be considered a cancellation, but that probably wasn't the point. I believe it was designed to build a foundation for future attacks, thereby demeaning him and calling his character into question. And here's the thing: a tweet about IO9 comic scribes because Snyder isn't scared to train his competition. And Stephanie comes in and says, "Please stop pitting creators against each other. Nothing good comes from that mentality. We're all peers. We're all in this together. If you're not in comics to also help lift up your peers, then maybe comics isn't for you." That's none of that works. That's 900% not how that works. And then Christopher Sebla, and that's just a reply to the thing. But maybe comics isn't for you, Scott Snyder. Yeah, that seems pretty aggressive. Man, all this talking. I don't think I've ever talked for this much in a row or straight or anything in ever. It's really weird. Don't worry, we're more than halfway through, guys. It's only been 40 minutes. Just kidding. Anyways, followed up breathlessly by a verified Twitter user, trademark, and proud Whisper Network ally, Christopher Savella, who also got in a tight jab when Scott was being put down. I don't think this attack went very well for Cook because it didn't go viral. It didn't gain any traction. For a few more months passed before the network lashed out again. I've noticed another pattern seems to be that they bring up the same petty grievances over and over again for years if necessary until it goes viral or the media reports on it. On June 25th, 2020, we witnessed Alex DeCampi saying she doesn't believe that Snyder would say no to abusing, harassing, grooming, or manipulating women, insinuating that he wouldn't intervene if he saw women being abused. Again, she gave no evidence to back up her insinuation that Mr. Snyder had ever sexually abused, harassed, or marginalized anyone. Yet without cause, she publicly let Snyder's peers, editors, friends, followers, and coworkers, even his wife, know that she thought Scott was capable of these horrific offenses when she shared it with her 24,000 Twitter followers. I'm sure they all appreciated her opinions on the matter. Yeah. Oh, this is that pledge. This crazy. Like, why you have to write a pledge or agree to a pledge to something? I will not do these things. Like, this is people that know what people don't do. They don't shouldn't have to pledge these sort of things. It's gatekeeping of the highest order. And Alex is here all. This is cute, but one, we don't believe you, and it goes way beyond this to things we're speaking up and using your privilege to push change when you see that nobody of marginalized backgrounds are being hired as creators by a particular office, or they're being given token books. Okay. And she goes on. It goes to refusing work with a publisher that continues to employ known harassers. It goes to saying no to all white male panels at cons, or guests at cons with no or only token members of minor creators as guests. It's all very nice to say pretty words of support and bless, but how will you actually risk? But you will actually risk your comfort to dismantle the system. You haven't so far. It's so crazy. I mean, yeah. Moving on. Scott Snyder will be Would Scott Snyder be accepting of abuse towards women and harassment in the workplace, or is she saying that Snyder is somewhat of a sexist and a racist because he's not dismantling the DC Comics system under which he is employed? Or is it she simply bitter that his employer has only ever hired her to write one comic and then never employed her again? She certainly seems to be a prolific writer on Twitter, though. So maybe that's why Alex De Facto's PR department gleefully turned her Twitter tantrum into a news story because, of course, they did. And then it goes in to read about how Bleeding Cool has done a thing about this. Comic book creator, novelist, director, and former Bleeding Cool columnist Alex DeCampi replied to Scott Snyder's pledge, saying, da-da-da-da. That's the tweet that I read. Comic book creator Tess Fowler made a similar point. Gentlemen, it's great that you can post a graphic and hashtag, but what are you doing to to overhaul the rigged system that you're currently benefiting from? I'm so effing tired. Why didn't y'all tell? It's like, it's never enough. You can't apologize. You can't bend the knee. It's never enough. And they even create these things and have them sign them. But if you're not the person that they feel they can change or manipulate, it's like, this isn't enough. You're not going to change. It's like, why? Why are you like this? Why do you feel? Just go make your own thing. You don't need to involve these people you don't want to, but actively going after them and, sorry, actively going after these people, just, it's so maniacal and so vitriolic. Anyways, let's keep going. Oh, here's Steph doing the same bloody thing. While we're at it, Snyder took this pledge to say no, but is complicit in allowing GCers to work and thrive at DC Comics Gators, among other things. You can't say no to harassment while allowing people who are actively harassing creators to find work alongside you. Mm-hmm. 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 Here we see Stephanie Cook attempting to stain Scott Snyder with the CG adjacent label, which has oddly become the equivalent of a scarlet letter, like calling someone Nazi lover. Lately, the act as labeling folks GCers and comic skaters has become a popular harassment tool, like an industry code word that translates to someone in a hate group. Does anyone ever hold her accountable for these defamatory accusations? Of course not. No one in the media held her accountable for the criminal accusations that Bill Willingham leveled against her. So a little harassment surely can't sully her reputation. Maybe they get away with it because these harassment tactics seem to be working for the Whisper Network. There's no penalty for potentially being wrong about the negative labels being tossed about, as far as I've ever seen. They don't even have to prove it. I suppose they could accuse 100 people of being CGer and they'll never have an answer for it. Since comic companies seem to have no bullying harassment rules against attacking fans and fellow pros online, Marvel and DC staff can use these weapons against readers, peers, and contract workers without any risk. Have all the people in authority been effectively cowed? Last week, everyone saw Tom King's weaponize the CG Association against Asian illustrator and industry legend Jay Lee. One could argue that there were both defamation-like elements and racial elements to King's attack, but he would likely get away with it, as everyone always seems to. Yet, despite Tom's mea culpa, according to Lee, he and King are not all good, as King tried to claim to his followers. But I digress. Because that whole situation was pretty crazy and had a lot to do with him just like the cover that they're talking about for Rorschach was announced back in April, and they're just complaining about it now. It makes little to no sense. And hopefully everybody didn't lose that there. I walked away from my computer for a hot second to get some water. I try to manage this bottle a little better. Oh my god, so much talking. But yeah, it was a whole crazy thing. He says Jay Lee's doing this cover for a Comicsgate, has done a cover for a Comicsgater, And he came back and said, Jay Lee's like, why do all these people call me? I know nothing about Comicsgate. I just do work when I get asked to do it, and I feel it's a good project. And said, oh, Tom King accusing me of this is not good. I'm not into any this group. I'm not in any group that's a hate group and everything else, and getting upset, and eventually Tom had to issue a larger apology, and that was, I don't know if I covered that in another video or not, but I don't think I did. But because I just kind of washed my hands of the whole thing at that point. So apparently this secret group is discussing Snyder now. And let's read into this. This is where things get even more insidious. Another pop activity I've seen in the Whisper Network is the sharing of contents from personal emails, private phone calls, and texts of all the other members, potentially shaming someone in the industry and turning that person's colleagues against him. These are private messages being shared with 443 women who all work in the same industry. While there is an expected support of feedback and encouragement, something else seems to be happening. See if you notice it. Following is from June 23rd to 25th about a smearing job against Snyder. Mags seemingly tipped her hand on the Women's Network's secret Facebook page based on her history. Appears this could be setting the stage for future attacks. And Mags goes, yeah, that's what I've been hearing. I'm just on edge after the Sean Murphy thing. I don't want it to get used. I don't want to be a dude's emotional support wall when I get signed up. All I signed up for was making a comic. I get that enough from Snyder. Yeah, you're their creative partner, not their mom/therapist. I mean, been there, but it sucks. I feel like every time Scott calls, we spend 10 minutes talking about comics and 45 of him talking about how he's talking in circles while he doesn't want to be a bad person, but he doesn't know what to do about X, and he thinks he should stay out of it, but he want just more that he didn't clip in there. Just today he was calling me about the Warrens thing, and I'm like, dude, I know less than you do right now, and I literally no advice. I kept telling him I needed to go because my phone was blowing up and day job stuff, and he keep going. This is part of the other bad behaviors, and that I think happens. Literally came to say this. The thing I read about Bemis is were a lot of emotional dumping and co-creator artists and some emotional manipulation. I think it might have been in this group that I saw it. Let me dig. And Mags hitting Mags tagged you in the old read threads. Ari Max, hope it helps. And Cecil goes, yeah. Cecil's in the Whisper Network. Oh no, that's not the Cecil. And Amy Chu pipes up. Oh, she's got a shield. She must be one of the admins. I had to stop talking to Scott after the Berganza thing. He felt that everyone should just trust them to work things out behind the scenes. Well, heard, heard that I've before. How's that been going for all of us? Well, he did spearhead the effort to oust Van Sciver. Oh. Casey Gilly, another check mark. She's a check mark, not a shield. While I wasn't offended by it, Scott had similar behavior with me during Witches. I was interviewing him for every single issue at his request, but really those considerations were 5 to 10 minutes of business and between 20 to 90 minutes of me providing 3 unlicensed therapy. I kept encouraging him to talk to a professional, which he absolutely has the means to do. Luckily, the book went on hiatus and I got hours of my life back, but I never saw really fit to speak to me. But he never really saw fit to speak to me again. Scott's gonna Scott. Okay, Mags. Okay, Mags. Yeah, there it is. Star means admin. Check means moderator. So, Sarah GLaDOS, Sarah Gatos, and where was it? Oh, I went past it already. Yeah, Amy Chu. They're both admins, and then Casey's a moderator. Silly. They approve of all this collusion. Oh wait, what's higher? Remember the very first tweet I shared with you at the beginning of the article where Amy Chu was mocking the Twitter user who claimed that the Whisper Network was run by Gail Simone and Alex Campe? You notice the little badge next to her name in this secret Facebook thread above? Do you know what that little badge means? I mean, the reason Amy Chu knows was able to say who doesn't run the network, Whisper Network, is because Amy Chu is one of the admins who runs a secret Facebook group, along with some of the others like editor-in-chief of Omni Press. They approve of all this conclusion. So has the stage been set for Snyder? In theory, if someone like Tess Fowler, Alex Campi, Stephanie Cook, Mags Visaggio, or Heather Antos were to make public accusations against Scott Snyder, which they might not, especially after this article drops, but let's say in a hypothetical scenario that they decided to, those previous public comments have laid a foundation for many of them have contributed to. All the following statements could be made and receipts could be provided as well, and as we've seen in the past, they don't have to provide any evidence. And here we go, reading over all that. Well, Scott did wait too long to announce Comicsgate. Scott did say he wanted to be competitive. While Scott said he wouldn't manipulate or harass women, Scott whines a lot on the phone. He's married after all, he wants the attention of women and is emotionally dumping. And that's just a step away from grooming behavior, especially since he's a cis white male in a position of power. You can't groom grown adults. You can't groom grown adults. That's not what that word means. It's not what the word means. Anyways. Sorry I'm losing my energy here, but I'm very dry right now. I'm so dry. This has been a nice long stream. It might hit an hour on the dot if I keep going. Anyways, for the Whisper Network to accuse anyone of bullying and harassment would be likened to a case of the pot calling the kettle black. I've only scratched the surface, and by digging in the recent past, I'm finding there's even more that I need to explore further. This rabbit hole goes deep. What looks like a collusion from 2018 and earlier is going to be the focus of Whisper Network Part 3. I think it may be a good time to share a few screenshots that I've collected while exploring the Whisper Network secret group. Does this look like car photos and girl talk? Or does it look like a lot of complaints and harassment against Diversity in Comics YouTube channel? And because these women might feel they've been harassed, they discuss the man's Patreon page and the topic of removing a potential source of income for him. Is there any evidence that Meyer ever spoke to these particular women? Do these screenshots demonstrate a private coordinated cyber attack? Something referred to as brigading. I'm trying to file a report with Patreon about diversity in comics, and they need the timestamp of the harassment violation from this dude's hundreds of videos. Another fun reminder of the ways we were forced to dig back through and relive our own harassment because, of course, I do not have the time to do this, so I don't get to file the report. You can make the time if it's harassment. I don't know why you're looking at it like that. Awesome. I hope he buys himself a burrito with his $800 and gives himself effing food poisoning. This person is a horrible person. Sorry that you can't be bothered to remember your own harassment when it occurs and go back and look it up so you can actually tell people, so you can actually report it. The whole reason that exists, and they want timestamps so they can see the evidence, so they can see the receipts of it. But nope, don't need receipts, don't need evidence, because we're the Whisper Network. Let's hope the big old... Casey. Hey, administrator, or I know you're a moderator, sorry. F it actually wasn't hard to find 3 videos where he targets people by name and instantly begins ranting, so I submitted it. Ranting about someone isn't harassment. Sorry. Apparently there's a whole thread, 8 replies into that one. I hate how the system is always built to support the abuser. Deal with this in private. You have to provide more proof. Well, we can't discipline him because it will make the company look bad. So much sympathy. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this isn't out of line. I mean, you have to provide proof. Like, just saying something happened isn't proof. You need actual evidence, and that means getting timestamps and actually showing that while they are talking about you, they're actually talking about you in a defamatory manner, not just talking about you as a creator, as someone who... Anyways, it's so bizarre. And then Danny Coleman follows up. My 2 cents on the Richard Meyer thing. Try reporting his Patreon for copyright infringement. It might get him shut down a lot faster than reporting him for hate speech or defamation, which is always subject of always flawed community standards on the platform. Community standards exist for a reason. If they're not up to your standards, then don't bother dealing with them. And Asher Powell says, we're on that. No, no. I also honestly don't know the legal ramifications of privately planning to take down someone's Patreon account like this, or trying to game the system by getting others to help. But maybe someone with legal expertise can shed some light on the subject. Here's another coincidence. On May 9th, 2018, Antarctic Press proudly announced they'd publish in Meyer's Jawbreakers graphic novel. It's such a, I don't know, it's a weird name. At the time, Jawbreakers was one of the most successful Indiegogo campaigns in history, having earned over $400,000 and more than 110,000 backers on the crowdfunding platform. But only a few months earlier, inside the Whisper Network, Mags seemingly implied that Mark Wade himself had recruited her to do a little legwork for him to uncover some potential evidence for him, whatever for. I need a favor. Can someone scan Meyer's account looking for his shit posts about me so I can forward them to Wade? I'm super not about reliving that. Yeah, if you mean his Facebook account, it's pretty locked down. And here's someone that's since left the network because they're dashed out. Yeah, I can't see much either unless I'm adding him. Much more to come, but oh, there's another page to this thing? No. Anyways, this is shorter. Oh, that's the whole page. Oh, no? Anyways, here's some advice, everybody, before we check out for the day. We're going to finish this up here. If you're an editor or company owner, beware. Watch who you give access to your personal finances and your private data to. Be prepared for anonymous tips to come flooding in, or hot news from questionable sources. Much like Tom King's recent attack on Jay Lee and many before his, most will have no evidence and can appear suddenly. If you are a creator in the comic industry, beware. If you have a prominent position, a mob is likely coming for you. Depending on your identity group, you could have no voice in the media, and no one will stand up for you no matter how ridiculous the allegations are. Watch who you interact with. Watch your wallet. Watch your emails and texts. If you are a fan, be vigilant. You can help. I'm not much different from you, just an outsider looking in, and I once felt helpless too. But we can do so much as fans. You don't have to take my word for it. Look around for yourself and see evidence of this in plain sight. Look into those rumors. Look at the accuser when you hear accusations with little no evidence. Look at the hate spreading all day long. And pay attention to who is starting it. Is it one of the Whisper Network or one of the allies on Twitter? Someone they interact with all the time? Tracing the hate back to the source is very easy, and you will see the same handful of people initiating it almost every time. If you're unconvinced, I want you to do the following. Try this experiment. Imagine everyone mentioned in this piece and then swap their genders. How would the comic book media react? Would they turn a blind eye, or writing hundreds of articles about a man being accused of embezzling thousands of dollars from a woman creator after she accused him in public statements given to the media? Would the mainstream media get involved? Would the Polygon, CBR, The Beat, ICV2, and many other major outlets chime in? 2. Will Marvel, Image, DC, and other companies finally make some common sense online bulletin policies? Negating and lobbying false accusations will only increase if companies don't step in and make rules for their contractors about harassing, bullying, and publicly accusing coworkers in the comic book industry, and against rising social terrorists who perpetuate the cycle of hate. This is very true. Most of these Twitter storms could have been handled privately, but people like Tom King seem to be going for woke points and virtuous signaling to the Whisper Network. Not sure what motivated his Jay Lee attack over the weekend, but it was out of bounds. Will these same players continue to grant exclusive interviews to news outlets and comics and help perpetuate harassment and employ so-called journalists who are linked to provide cover for the Whisper Network? Is it time for a list? Should someone start a group of folks who have been victimized? Everyone who has had rumors and lies spread about them, everyone who has had money embezzled, everyone who has been blackmailed, everyone who has been trashed by corrupt journalists, everyone who has been bullied, harassed, or had their livelihoods threatened. Should these victims create a group so the world can see what kind of damage has been done and continues to be done by social terrorists in the comic industry? Maybe the transparency we keep hearing about in the comic biz should be standard for everyone to follow, and not just folks outside of the privileged private Whisper network. Because that would truly be equality. And be right back. Lots more to come. And then a screenshot of all the data she's accumulated on her Mac. And all these different people. God. So that's it. That's the deal. That's the stream, folks. I wanted to show this off. I wanted to be, hey, let's try a weekend stream and see how many people poke in and say hi. But so far it's just a bit of experiment. But if you're still listening, thank you for sticking around for the stream, for the whole VOD. I mean, goodness, reach out if you did, and I will somehow hook you up with something for being so nice. But anyways, that's it for today. Just some updates on things. I am currently on the road to 100 subscribers. It's currently at 76, so just 24 more to go. I've gotten those 26 in the last maybe 5 weeks or so, so it's been steady. Um, this week was slow, but there'll be fast and slow weeks. It's all right. I'm just sort of patiently letting people know where I'm at and letting them know that the fight continues, and it's just like a goal I'm setting for myself. I'm not these are I'm not ever trying to pretend these aren't low effort things. They're just stuff that I like to talk about. It's all unscripted. It's all just throwing things together. I am sort of getting into the habit of doing certain things and improving things, so it's not looking low effort anymore in certain aspects. So hope everyone's been appreciating that. If you've been this long and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and so you can keep track of all the different stuff I put out. It'd be very cool if you did. I will let everyone go because this one is just past an hour and my throat is dying. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.